Imagine waking up to a world that believes you're dead. This is the eerie true story of Essie Dunbar, who was mistakenly buried alive and spent 47 years proving she wasn't a ghost. Discover the mysterious events and unwavering resilience that make Essie's tale unforgettable, and let us know where you're listening from. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Essie Dunbar was an ordinary black girl who grew up in a nurturing family in Black Village, South Carolina. She was a kind-hearted girl with a beautiful spirit and a captivating smile for everyone. Despite her gentle nature, Essie suffered from epilepsy and frequently experienced seizures. After each episode, she wished it wouldn't recur, but inevitably, there was always another one. The most challenging part was having these attacks in public places. It often took her a while to gather the courage to go out again. Her childhood was characterized by numerous such episodes. Nonetheless, Essie matured into a remarkable young woman, diligent and resolute in her pursuit of success. By the time she turned 30, Essie was living independently in her own apartment, juggling 2 jobs, and steadily advancing in her career. During this time, she also learned to identify and manage the triggers of her seizures, making deliberate efforts to avoid them. However, despite her precautions, the unpredictable nature of her condition meant that anything could happen at any moment. One day, she faced a disaster she had never anticipated. On a summer morning in 1915, Essie woke up exceptionally late for work, unlike her usual mornings. "How am I going to handle all these files on my desk?" she muttered to herself. She had until evening to submit them. Tension built up as she finally settled at her desk. Upon arriving at the office, though exhausted, she immediately began working on the files. It wasn't until late in the evening that she finally submitted her work for approval. Drained, she dragged herself back home. As she approached her doorstep, she nearly stumbled when the door opened. Her legs felt weak, but she managed to rush inside. She quickly threw her jacket onto the couch and climbed into bed. In all this, Essie neglected something crucial. If only she had known, that night would have changed everything. Completely exhausted, Essie forgot to take her medication. Sadly, later that night, disaster struck. Essie abruptly woke up with a start, gasping for air. She was experiencing another epileptic seizure. Realizing what was happening, she managed to activate an alarm near her head, hoping desperately that it would alert her neighbors. Initially, luck was on her side, but it didn't last long. When the neighbors heard the alarm, they dialed and rushed to check on her. Upon arrival, they knocked repeatedly on her door, but received no answer. They decided to break in, presenting a terrifying scene for Essie. She was seizing and already unconscious. Quickly, she was taken to the hospital where Dr. D.K. Briggs attended to her. After examining her vitals, he found no signs of life and declared her dead. When the news reached her sister, she was devastated, believing Essie was merely dreaming. Her sister stared wide-eyed, lost in thought. Reflecting on the past, they weren't just siblings but also best friends. A few months prior, they had made a list of things they wanted to accomplish together. What will happen to all those wishes, she wondered, tears streaming down her face, believing things might have been different if Essie had been there that tragic night. She wished she could have been by Essie's side in her final moments after being declared dead. Essie's funeral was scheduled for 11 a.m. the next day, allowing her sister, who lived in Allendale, time to catch a train to Blackville. The train was expected to arrive shortly before the funeral, and Essie's sister had promised to attend. Neighbors, friends, and family gathered at the church, but Essie's sister was running late. After waiting for a while, the priest began the ceremony, hoping she would arrive later. It was a beautiful service, officiated by 3 priests. After the sermon, as Essie's sister still hadn't shown up, everyone grew concerned. Had something happened on the way? Perhaps she had changed her mind about attending the funeral? With no one sure how much longer she might take or if she would make it at all, they decided to proceed with the burial rites. They began lowering the wooden coffin into the grave, and the morticians started covering it with dirt. When they were almost halfway through, suddenly a loud wailing was heard. It was Essie's sister, rushing toward the grave. "I have to see my Essie one last time, my dear Essie," she cried out. She appeared pitiful, wailing loudly because she wanted to see Essie just once more. She approached the priests and asked if they could reopen the coffin. "Let me see my sister's face one last time," she pleaded. Everyone felt sympathy for her. The priests held a brief discussion and decided to honor her request. The wooden coffin was pulled out. Unbeknownst to everyone, a bigger drama was about to unfold. Once the coffin was back on the ground, some men removed the screws, and one mortician lifted the lid. Immediately, the lid came apart with a loud noise. Instead of finding Essie's lifeless body inside, she was alive as the coffin opened. She sat up and smiled at her sister before turning to face everyone else with a smile. Chaos erupted in the church and backyard as everyone fled in panic. Even the priests, in their haste to escape, fell into the dug grave. One priest suffered several broken ribs when another stepped on him while trying to exit the hole amidst the confusion. Essie, unaware of being the cause of the chaos, joined in the frantic escape. Making matters worse, Essie was running aimlessly and headed home. Everyone who encountered her along the way screamed and fled, convinced she was a ghost for the rest of the day. Essie stayed indoors, not understanding what was happening, but realizing that everyone was terrified of her. She knew she had to remain inside. It wasn't until 2 days later that Essie's sister finally mustered the courage to return home and chose to stay by Essie's side. She explained everything that had transpired, understanding that her life would never be the same. The following week, Essie felt encouraged to share her testimony at church, but was worried about a negative reaction from the congregation. Her sister reassured her not to be afraid. The next Sunday, Essie and her sister woke up late. Both had difficulty sleeping and spent the night contemplating what the future held. Essie almost decided not to attend church. However, her sister insisted that she needed to share her story. Perhaps it was a mistake to listen to her sister. That morning, they quietly walked to church, each lost in their own thoughts. Upon reaching the church's entrance, they noticed the last seat was empty, so they took their places quietly. Everything was going smoothly since no one had seen them yet. However, someone soon spotted them. An elderly woman glanced back and immediately screamed upon seeing Essie, then fled the church. Other congregation members also panicked and ran, while some remained. Among those present, some were merely curious, others were skeptics, and only a few believed Essie. Once everything settled, Essie gave her testimony. Despite this, even those who stayed away refused to approach her, still frightened. Nonetheless, Essie was relieved to have shared her story, proving she was not a ghost. The doctors had mistakenly declared her dead. Nevertheless, people continued to claim she would soon return to wherever she came from. Essie outlived some of these skeptics. Over the years, as she received mixed reactions from the locals, some would flee upon seeing her, others sought autographs, and the rest asked odd questions. Essie struggled with her reality. Eventually, she accepted it and chose to live her life to the fullest until her time came. This time, she never returned. It was 47 years later when Essie, now 70, briefly fell ill and finally passed away in May 1962. Those who remained by her side were heartbroken by her departure, but there was still hope. They had a second chance to be with her, as she could have died the first time she was buried. This story has neither been confirmed nor debunked, but many newspapers such as The Times, the Democrat Augusta Chronicle, and 14 Times reported on Essie's story. Additionally, a book by John Bonds titled Buried Alive lends credibility to his account. What are your thoughts on this story? Do you believe Essie's incredible story is true, or is there another explanation? Let us know your thoughts below.